Hi, what's your name?
Marian Bland Morris.
Were you raised here in this church?
Yes, I was. From
And
birth.
from birth. So your parents were active in the church too?
Yes.
And what were your parents' names?
John and Betty Bland.
Were they the first ones in your family to be in the church, or?
No, my grandparents and my aunt and several uncles.
And what were their names?
Floyd, Douglas, and Arabella.
And their last name was Barry?
Yes, Barry.
And when did they settle in this area? Do you remember?
No, I don't know.
But
Evidently from my grandfather, Barry, William E. Barry, evidently from a young age. But I don't have any history on the Barrys about that.
What are your earliest memories of the church?
I guess when I was about 5 or 6 years old, more than likely, my mother was in the choir, and of course I went to Sunday school every Sunday. And on Wednesday night, we didn't have babysitters then, so I went every Wednesday night to choir practice. And my friend who lived across the street, Margaret Holman, her mother played the organ, and Margaret and I usually ended up asleep on the first pew of the Methodist Church while they had choir practice.
Where did your Sunday school class meet when you were a child?
Upstairs in the sanctuary.
Did that seem like a long way up there when you were a little child?
No, but you always had dreams. You didn't mind it going up there, but the big ones were downstairs. And you dreamed of going downstairs to be in the rooms downstairs. But no, it really didn't seem so far. In fact, you kind of like going upstairs. But it was different. I mean, there were Sunday school classes, and we had a piano and music before those Sunday school classes and all of this. And then, of course, as you know, as you came downstairs, where the new part is now, that was a semicircle, and there were divisions, like you'd call them cubicles, more or less now. And that's where the Sunday school classes met.
How many Sunday school classes could they fit in that area?
Oh, goodness. About 15.
Wow.
It made a semicircle. And then in the middle was an auditorium, and the pews were just like that were in the sanctuary. And there was a piano, and you had your assembly. You could have assembly in there and then get up and go in the... And they were open. They weren't closed.
Were the children part of the Sunday school assembly also?
Yes. But you had to be a certain age to get downstairs. And not only that, a lot of the members, the older, now my mother belonged to the friendship class, and there was one, the Abernathy class, and they met in these Sunday school rooms too. So that's where that's where the Sunday school classes met. Started off upstairs, and then you came downstairs.
Do you remember the names of any of your Sunday school teachers?
Well, the one I remember more than anybody else was one of our teachers, Miss Lily Mae Kelly. She taught us the books of the Bibles and the Beatitudes, and you'd learn Bible verses, and she was a very dedicated Sunday school teacher.
Was she also a school teacher?
Yes.
What did she teach in school? Or do you remember?
She taught the 7th grade, I think. Maybe English. But she was the one that, I guess, the Sunday school teacher that I remember the most.
What do you remember about her?
Oh, she was kind, and she was fun. She made it interesting. You wanted to go, and you wanted to. If she said, "Now next Sunday we're gonna do this," and you really wanted to be sure you knew it, to be a part of it. And it was a girls' class. It wasn't mixed. It was just all girls, which made it kind of fun too.
And what age were you then?
Oh, about 14.
Okay. Did you have a youth group there at the church that you were a part of also?
Oh yes, Epworth League.
And what kind of things did you do at Epworth League?
Well, back then, the adults were not a part of it. It was strictly youth. And it was very active. And we met on Sunday night about 6 o'clock in this particular area. And then, about once a month, we'd have a district thing. We might go to Mount Pleasant, Dangerfield, and all the towns in our Texarkana district, several of them. And then sometimes you would go and stay overnight, and the people of I know one time we went to New Boston, and the different homes would take, like the girls here would keep 2 girls and something like that, and then they would respond and come over here, and it was very active. And like I said, we didn't have to have an adult. We were serious. Epworth League was just so much a part of our life. Sunday night at 6 o'clock, you were there, and it was a big organization too. Do you remember Epworth League?
I've heard of it, and I know my mother was a part of it when she was growing up, but that was before my time.
Well, doesn't she sort of talk about it that way?
I haven't heard her talk about it a lot. She grew up in Illinois, and I know she was a serious Christian as a young person.
Well, it really, like I said, on Sunday night, and you'd say, well, where's so-and-so? I mean, you were missed if you weren't there, but I'm sure there were 20 or 25 young people there.
Sounds like a good number.
It was.
And the youth led it themselves?
Yes. We never did call all the parents to do anything.
So when you needed to travel to one of those other cities, did you drive yourselves?
Oh, no. Somebody would take us, because one reason, most of it, there weren't any cars. We didn't have our own car, and we didn't have driver's license either. But somebody did take. We didn't have a church bus, but someone would take us and come get us. Too. But now Epworth League was a big factor in the people of my ages that went to church.
Are there any people still in the church today that you remember going to Epworth League with?
Joyce, Keith. Of course, she's older. They were older than we were. Annie Ruth. I mean, John Holman, who isn't in our church, but he went. They belonged to our church then, because his mother was the organist. And well, too, and so many of them have died that belong to Epworth League.
Do you remember what year you joined the church?
No, I don't. I thought about that, and like I said, that was such a part of my mother and daddy's life that I just went to church, and I can't even, I'm trying to think, I can't even remember the preacher. I've asked my brother, and he said, I can't remember when I joined the church. But we did. We just always went.
Do you remember if when you joined it was a special occasion or a revival or something like that?
Probably a revival. Because, oh gosh, we love the revivals.
What did you like about the revivals?
The music.
So was the music something special at a revival?
Well,
out of the ordinary?
I mean, the songs you sang, Since Jesus Came Into My Heart, and all those songs. And, of course, I love the music in the church anyway. And the choir was big, and everybody was singing. And then, of course, we'd always have a out-of-town preacher. And that was a big thing, because the preacher stayed at the parsonage with the preacher and his wife. And then people signed up to have them for dinner. And of course, my mother and daddy had them, and you really think, oh, the preacher, they're coming to our house to eat dinner. At noon, they went to the Rotary Club, all the different clubs like that. But at night, they ate at people's houses. And you didn't have to beg anybody to have, and they came to your house. You didn't go out to eat. And that was, I don't know, we usually had 2 a year.
How many days did a revival last in those days?
I'm trying to think. I know a week. It seemed like sometimes 2 weeks, but goodness, that seems like a long time.
And people came out every night to hear the preaching?
Really did. And it was, and of course it was always an out-of-town preacher. And then as time came along, it was like 3 nights.
Right.
And sometimes the preachers would be young men that had been in our church. One of them's name was Reynolds, Wayne Reynolds, I think, who was very high in the Methodist Church.
And he was raised here in Pittsburgh?
And I think down at Lafayette.
Okay.
And different preachers, but he was always an out-of-town preacher. But the church, it was always a big crowd. We always look forward to revivals. Sorry they don't have them now.
Do you think if we had them today, they'd work as well?
No.
Why not?
I don't know.
People too busy?
And a different lifestyle. Just like I said, now I'm saying this, just the way people live now. Most people would say, oh, I'll take them out to eat, but I'm not going to have them at my home. But to have them in your home was so special.
Right.
Back then. It was just part of the church.
Right. Who are some of the pastors that you remember throughout the years?
Well, Brother Andrews. He had children my age. C.L. Williams. We had 2 Williams, one right after the other. And when Brother Andrews was preacher, my dad was secretary of the Board of Stewards then. And the parsonage was where the educational building is, a big 2-story house.
Right.
And after the Board of Stewards met, my dad and Brother Andrews went over to the parsonage and played dominoes. Just the 2 of them. And then the Williamses. Then of course, then Brother Jordan Melton came along. And we thought he was a permanent fixture. And he stayed there till after I married and had my first child. We left and were in the service. And then he christened Johnny. And I think also my younger son who died, too. And when I don't know when they joined the church or not. I don't believe the preacher was still there, but I was thinking that he was. That my Jimmy and the boys, they all joined the church on an Easter Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And I want to think it was Preacher, but after the Williamses, I think that Dorothy and everybody called him Preacher, and too, but he stayed for such a long time. And then there was Brother Brock, Jewel Strong.
Uh-huh.
Who else did we? Brown, somebody. You think of, he left here and went to Marshall. Do you know who I'm talking about there?
No.
Big man. His daughter had a beautiful voice. And,
Byron Boyette?
yes.
Okay.
Yep, Byron Boyette. I think he went to Marshall from here.
Okay. One of his daughters attended Southwestern for a while when I was there. His daughter, Debbie.
Well, one of his daughters had a beautiful voice. And, I can't remember Dan Lewis, Dan Amerson, and, of course, in Randy Smith and Gail. Randy stayed several years, but it got where they stayed like 4 or 5 years.
Uh-huh.
I guess Gail stayed shorter time than anybody we had. That seemed to kind of, it didn't me, but it did upset because she was a female.
Uh-huh.
But to me, she did an excellent job.
Uh-huh.
And, but I don't think she stayed but 2 years. And then Ricky came, and then you.
Who are some of the lay leaders that you remember throughout the years?
That I don't remember very much about, because I didn't know that much about that part of it. The Board of Stewards, I thought that's all they had back then. These other like pastor, parish things. Back in the early days, it was just the Board of Stewards and maybe the Board of Trustees.
Well, what I'm getting at is, who are some of the lay people that were strong leaders in the church?
Well, my uncle, Floyd, everybody knew Floyd Berry, black and white. And Mr. Covey, Fred Covey, was real strong in the church. Let's see. Dick's dad, T.J. White, was a real strong person.
Right.
He taught Sunday school. And let me think of some more men that were on that Board of Stewards. Mr. Couch, B.B. Couch, was a strong person in the church. Now my dad and Mr. Couch, that was back in the days when we had conference. They had conference like in Nacogdoches just for one day. In the fall. And my dad and mother and Mr. and Miss Couch, they were going to conference. They went, of course, then when they changed to Houston for a week, they didn't go, but used to was down there, and if it was any place where it was like a Sunday, they went to conference. Do you remember that, them doing that?
That was before my time.
I know that.
We moved to Texas in the late 70s,
oh, you
which
didn't
was
remember
after that.
talking about that then?
I've heard some people talk about it.
And, too, but I mean, I knew you didn't remember it, but that's, old Daddy and Mr. Couch, now they were going to conference. But, I'm trying to think of some more men that, Brooks Hooten was a real strong person. He married, Frances Stewart. Brooks Hooten was George Stewart's uncle by marriage.
Okay.
And they were very dedicated to the church. In fact, I want to say Brooks had an uncle, Caradine Hooten, who was a preacher who was pretty high up in the Methodists.
Uh-huh.
Brooks was from Dangerfield, and his uncle or something, so had been raised in the Methodist Church. Of course, even before, which I can't remember the Holmans, but I don't remember John's grandfather, but they were big in the Methodist Church. Too, but we had, I just have to stop and think. Now next week I can probably tell you some more of the people like that.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the church over the years?
Well, overall the service is much the same as it was. Of course, a few things I miss that we don't have, that we used to have. Randy Smith one day, I said, Randy, I said, I said, on the first Sunday you're supposed to sing Holy, Holy, Holy. He said, Marian, he said, just because Milton Jordan did that, said, I don't have to do that. Says, you just had Milton too long. and we did. On the first Sunday with Milton Jordan, you sang Holy, Holy, Holy. And I don't know, it seemed like people volunteered and did stuff. You didn't have to call. And they'll say, well, I'm so busy, I'd like to, but I can't. Just like once a year, where Oscars is now, we had dinner on the grounds in September. That was the biggest day. It was open, had trees over there and picnic tables, and that church would be running over. And food, homemade food, just every kind of food you could think of. And it was like you see in movies where you see them do things like that. And like I said, the choir, nobody was paid other than the preacher. And he didn't get much. But everybody just volunteered. And because they wanted to. Because we love that church, and we were proud of our church. And now, I really don't think the church has grown all that much. The crowds seem about the same to me. But now, of course, the change to me, Richard, is the people. I mean, I don't know them. I know them, but it's not like it used to when I went to church. You knew like the Howards, the Garretts, the Hootons, the Steegers, and you could look and, they're not there. No. Just so many people. The Milligans. Just people like that. And it's not that they're not there, but time has changed so that I'm just a casual acquaintance with most of them. And like in the church, in the choir, I can look up there. I don't know a third of the people up there. And of course, whose fault is that? Mostly mine. And but I still love to go. And I'll always go to church as long as I'm able. And the Missionary Society, back which they called it then, it was a big thing. They had 2 or 3 circles of them, and the ladies dressed, and it met every Monday. The Trainums, and there was a ladies' Sunday school class, a friendship class. It was a big class of women. but of course they just all died away.
Yeah.
And but see, like that, I can think of people, the Trainums and the so many people that do. But goodness, so many women went to the Missionary Society. Mm-hmm. My mother wouldn't miss going. She sang in the choir till she got sick, and too. So I don't think it's changed because of the people. Not that they've changed, but I mean just different faces.
Uh-huh.
And too, because you go in there and this one thing, you walk in there, and it's what I've been looking at since I was a little bitty girl. Mm-hmm. I can sit in there, Richard, and look up in that choir and see Miss Turner and my mother and Miss McClure and all of these old timers. I could see them up there, and where my daddy sat, where my Uncle Floyd sat, where Mr. and Miss Couch sat. They sat, if you went in like that, they sat on the right over there.
Uh-huh.
And you just knew where everybody sat in the church. And if they weren't there, you knew something was wrong. Mm-hmm. That was the only reason those people weren't at church, too. So it's it has a lot of memories for me.
Uh-huh.
And I can just go in there and just sit and see all of these people. On Sunday morning, I can just sit there before you, and I can just look all over that church. And at one time, after my mother died, well, my dad came in the side door over there, where if you're going out to go to the rock.
Uh-huh.
My dad and Mr. Aldridge, who was that other man? I can't think now who the third, but three of them sat over there. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't see, and Mr. Aldridge was nearly blind. I mean, he just walked around like this, was nearly blind, and my dad could not hear, he couldn't see too well. And he wanted to get out before the crowd did. So when they'd start singing the last song, and everybody in church would nearly start laughing, Daddy'd get up and say, well, gentlemen, I'll see y'all next Sunday. And get up, walk out that side door. Oh, I just wanted to crawl under the table. But he thought, I've got to get out of here so I can miss the crowd getting out of church. And that was just nearly a standard thing, but you could see those three men sitting over there. And of course, I know you've heard people talk about Miss Trainum. And there were a lot of old people, the Swayzes.
Uh-huh.
And Miss Swayze planted that dogwood tree. She lived on Texas Street.
Uh-huh.
But she planted that. And they were having, the Missionary Society was having something, and they had a punch. And Sybil Hess, George's mother, and maybe Kate Clark and Mary Shell, they were all big in there. So Mrs. Swayze tasted it, and she says, this doesn't taste right. Says it needs some gin. Well, they all did back. They said, wait a minute here. He said, somebody's going to have to go buy a bottle of ginger ale. But she had called it gin. But to put a bottle of ginger ale to put in that punch, it just didn't have a fizz enough to suit her. The Swayzes were a big part of that church. And like I said...
Are there any Swayzes left today?
No. Mm-mm. I don't know of one of them. But they were big in the church, and of course, Mary Shell, Dave's 3 aunts.
Uh-huh.
Miss Kate Clark and Dave's mother now, and but Mary and Kate now they were real big in the church, and as I'm sitting here and can think about these two, of course the Abernathys were big in the church, the Whites, the Lockharts, the Holmans, the Wrights. He was the doctor here, Dr. Wrights. Dr. Wrights tried to come. His wife would be there, but Dr. Wrights would come in. Maybe he might be late, but he'd sneak in. If he had had a patient or something, he'd come on to church very quietly. He'd just sit over there, and he couldn't help with the church, but I mean, physically,
right,
in person, but he gave a lot to the church.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 3 children, and they were all 3 active in that work. All of our children, they were real active in the Ellises, Mary John Ellis. They were big members of the church. But like I said, the main thing is that it was all loving stuff. Miss Winkle, after Miss Ada died, Miss Charles Winkle played the organ, and they paid her. And when the collection came back, she put it back in the collection plate. She never took a penny. She wasn't a Methodist, but I don't guess. But she came to choir practice, and she gave up her time, and she never took 1 penny from the church. And it was just a loving thing for them. And of course, I'm sure you see that now where I don't, because I'm not near as active as I used to be. And I guess age catches up with you, because I was talking with Beverly today about the Lord's Acre, and I says, I really wish I could do more like I did when they first started having it. But I probably could, but I don't. I just am. I get tired, but when I told her, I said, please call me, because I do want to help with it. Are we going to have it?
In some form or other.
Okay. And too, see, I did the first luncheon too, and it went over so well, or we were really pleased with it. And too, but no, there's some people, I think, I wonder sometimes if it's that sanctuary I think about more than the religious part, but then I think, no. Of course, I am so proud of it, and I think it is so pretty. But to hear that organ play, and it just makes it so much. To look at the windows, and like I said, I can just see so many of those people just, that was back in the days when everybody wore hats and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And, but I don't, in fact, sometimes, Richard, I think the younger people put more into it than maybe we did. They seem willing. Am I right in saying this?
Maybe.
Well, but like I said, we just, now we had a young mother's class. Gosh, I don't know how many there were of us, and that was after they had remodeled the where we had Sunday school. Had all that pretty wood and stuff. They'd remodeled it. And our Sunday school class was very interesting. Lucille Harrison taught it 1 month. and Edith McWaters Robinson taught it one month. And we laughed. We said, well, one month we got the Baptist Standard because Lucille's dad was a Baptist preacher, but she belonged to Methodist Church. And the next month we got it out of the Methodist because Edith's dad was minister of the Garrett was her name, Edith Garrett, was minister. So we laughed. We said, well, one month we get it out of the Baptist Standard, and the next month we get a Methodist, out of Methodist literature. But they were both excellent teachers, and we called ourselves the young mothers. That's when our children were like babies, and maybe some had started a class. But we had a big class. Another woman that taught it that did well, but not as well as, or I mean, different, I'll put it that way, was H.T. Bell. Have you heard of her?
No.
Henry Bell. Now they were big in the church.
I'm almost out of tape here, so let me ask.
I hope I've helped you.
You're doing good. Let me ask you one last question.
Okay.
Do you have any words of wisdom or words of advice to the coming generations?
Be dedicated and go, because you get so much. To me, church is so meaningful and helpful to everybody. Or that's the way I feel about it. And you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Because that's really the way I feel now. I think I don't put into it what I used to.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, you're welcome. I hope I've helped.